Keep it 1 minute here, just a couple people in the waiting room coming in, and then we'll get this one started and we'll dive into some questions and such. Alrighty. So we only have a couple people on here today. This is even less than last week. What the heck? Last week I brought the fire with my training. I thought more people were going to show up this week. No, I think we'll get some more coming in. So we have Danielle, who actually I've geared some of this around in your post earlier today. Hey, we have Ro on here. Ro, you might be able to actually chime in and help and answer a couple of these where I need a little more of a technical perspective or a back end. So if you're able to unmute and chime in at all throughout the thing, Ro, that'd be awesome. And for some reason, Georgetta is still in the waiting room, even though I hit admit, it's just not letting her in. So let me just give it 1 or 2 more minutes. I don't want to start with some new updates and some things I want to go over and then have to repeat it just because one person's there. So just give that a minute. Ro, are you in a place where you're able to chime in a little if I call on you once or twice? Or are you just kind of sitting back listening?
Yeah, I can chime in.
Okay, great. Awesome. I might have you either elaborate on or give me your opinion on a couple things particular to Dan Yell's post when I get into that question segment. And I'm gonna start right off with that in the first 5 minutes after I just go over a couple of updates here. So, regardless, let me just start. Georgetta is still in the waiting room for some reason. Maybe she's having connection issues. It just keeps saying joining, but nothing's happening. And I'm just going to start the same way I start everyone. And since you're the only one really on here outside of my team member, Ro, Danielle, and again, Georgetta is still having issues coming in for some reason. I'm just going to go over this again really, really quickly. I think you've been on these workshops and I think you've already seen this resource, Danielle. But I'm going to cover this in a minute or less and then just drop this in the chat before I dive into 1 or 2 things and then get
Okay.
into your questions specifically. But first off, again, in case anyone is watching on the replay or on YouTube where I upload these, this document, which I'm dropping in the chat here for any of the current attendees, will also be in the description of this video below. So if you are watching this again on replay and you're looking for this resource, just scroll down to the description below and I always link it in there. But all this is and what's on my screen. And again, I'm going to take the link and I'm going to go copy that and just drop it into the chat here really quick. For yourself, Danielle, if you haven't received this, and I see Monica and Georgetta both coming in. I think everybody already has this that's on this call, but just in case, right now in the chat, there is a link to a Google Doc, and that is just what's on my screen here for anybody that hasn't seen this or lost the link. And again, really, really fast, these are just the best resources you need to build out your sales process for having your DaaS agency. So as it says, seller resources for closing data deals. Number one is a Google Doc showing the exact sales process that I recommend you guys build out. Same one I built our team with and same one I use in my sales lab company when I do sales team build outs for a lot of private clients. Number two is a tutorial going over that document and just elaborating on that, anything I might have kept short. Also screen sharing you and showing you what that sales process looks like throughout our funnel. Number three, as I always talk about, our best copy and creative and ads and everything we do to land new data clients day in and day out. I actually have some updates that I'll be updating that document before the end of the week with some new ad sets. Probably not as relevant for any of you guys not running your own ads, but also some of our best email campaigns, some short form creative and copy we've seen work very well in cold outreach via email, LinkedIn, etc. So anyway, copies of some of our best creative and what we're currently putting together. Of course, I recommend a 2-call sales process. So call number one, your triage call. Here's the script of the framework already built out for you, tried and tested and proven. And same thing with number 5, your actual sales call or your demo call. Here's your script or framework already built out for you. Now you'll see when I go through that number 2, when I go through that tutorial and I'm bringing up kind of the number 5, the master sales doc for the demo calls. I always talk about customizing the pitch and then utilizing some type of visual assets, visual sales, which we recommend going through and using number 6 on my screen, a copy of our authority pitch deck. Again, guys, nothing here is branded to Audience Labs. So when you download it and make your own copy, you swap out the first slide with your own branding or image. And then it's just a short, I would probably only use about 8 or 10 of the slides in this pitch deck in my presentation, just really showing your clients and prospects, hey, this is exactly how I target your audience. Hey, this is exactly how we then take that audience and loop it into your advertising and marketing campaigns, so on and so forth. So, hey, this is actually how we resolve the identity of your bounce visitors. And then, of course, we give you guys, a half dozen or a dozen different case studies in here to leverage. Number 7 on my screen is more specific to the pixel pricing. Number 1, how do I really assess if a client's going to be a good fit? I cover in here. If you guys have watched this tutorial or anyone in the future that does, you're going to see as I'm doing this, I'm going through what's called our pixel forecast calculator. That's the tool I am using on the screen there. And that is linked right in the description of that particular video. Number 1 at the top, as I was just talking about, it's a great tool for assessing if a client is going to be a good fit. By getting about 4 pieces of data and putting it into that pixel calculator, we're going to get a very close rough guesstimate of how much revenue they're leaving on the table by not utilizing, identity resolution technology. And then we can kind of understand if there's a solid ROI and a home run. Also, toward the bottom of that calculator, we give you a couple different ways as I go through in that tutorial on how to price the pixel. Should I go straight retainer? If so, how should I price it? Should I go retainer plus performance? Should I go straight performance, etc.? Number 8 is showing you about 20 or so of my sales call recordings. I know there's been a few of you that have messaged me one-on-one and said, hey, Ray, after watching 2 or 3 of your recordings, I picked up some word tracks that I merged into my sales call and they made a big difference. Or I picked up your approach and kind of merged that in with my personality and it's helped. So if seeing some of my calls, verbiage, terminology, word tracks, etc., would be helpful. There's about 20 or so of my sales call recordings. And then, as you guys know, last month, or some of you guys may know if you were on any of my workshops or went through number 9. Number 9 is kind of just an updated sales script. I have a lot of experience and a lot of time building sales teams, getting on sales calls, assessing, revamping sales processes. And this is just a rewrite kind of number 5 up here. Now, this one is still more geared toward the data side of things, where this script down here is a little more general. But I would say maybe merging the two together is best practices. But the newer one, again, throughout the years, I just see some different trends and intricacies and nuances happening within sales calls and what people are looking for. And I would say this newer model, this newer script is just more condensed and clear and concise and keeping sales calls to a shorter conversation. People don't really want to get into their emotional backstory and talk for a half hour before they get into your solution. They just kind of want the straight, shoot them straight. So that's really the only difference there. And this is more optional. Number 5 is probably still set up to just get on and read it as it is and go close deals right away. Where number 9, you might have to make a couple adjustments and merge in some of that stuff with 5. So again, anybody who just hopped on, and I know I invited, or admitted 2 or 3 of you while I was going through this document. And this is something I go through on every single week's workshop. I'm going to go throw this in the chat again for you guys, just in case you hopped on late and you don't have it. Chat. There it is. I dropped this before some of you came on, and I know if I type anything in the chat before you guys log in, you can't see that. So again, that link I just dropped here in the chat is the link to the document I just went over. One other announcement I want to make really quickly before I go into some of today's lesson and Q&A and some of the stuff Danielle is specifically on this call for. Really quick, let me go back into screen share. I'm not sure why I stopped screen share. Hold on a minute. Did I just lose? Okay, hold on one second. Okay, great. So screen share again. I just want to talk about an upcoming workshop, kind of a special one-off one that we do from time to time. And some of you guys may be aware of it, some of you may not. I just want to say who this is for and where the value is and show you where you can access this. So obviously within our calendar tab, you see our weekly workshop series. Now, on Thursday, the 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern, I'm having an outside expert, not somebody that is an Audience Lab client or an Audience Lab user, but an outside expert, all geared around LinkedIn profile growth optimization, LinkedIn profile growth, optimization, content creation, best strategies. This LinkedIn expert has just joined and partnered with me on a couple projects, and working with her in the last month, she's just phenomenal. She has about a following of, I want to say 74,000 on LinkedIn, and her pure expertise is just straight, LinkedIn acquisition, content creation, turning your LinkedIn profile into an acquisition funnel, et cetera, et cetera. So I highly recommend, if any of you guys are doing organic outreach, considering it, trying to grow a presence or a profile or following, whatever, on LinkedIn, you need help with revamping your profile, you're creating content, but nothing's converting, or you're not getting engagement, this workshop is probably for you. So I just wanted to make everybody aware that that's a kind of a special one we're running a week from Thursday. I'll drop a couple of posts about it too in the school community. I know there's only 8 or 10 people on this call here today. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you and know that that's coming up and available, and something we're going to be trying to do a little more of going forward. Is having a special guest expert come in probably once a month, maybe every other month, to teach their expertise, especially if it's something that we think would offer you guys value, but maybe we don't have an expert on our team that does that. Maybe we don't have a lot of modules or tutorials in the classroom section on that. Maybe we give you some, general getting started information, but we don't have a lot of continuation stuff on how to continue to grow my profile, my following, et cetera, et cetera. So again, just wanted to make everybody aware of that special workshop we're running. Now, what I want to touch on really quickly and dive into is, Danielle, you made a post today with some questions and some sales questions you're getting. I'd love you to unmute as I go over this, and we'll kind of talk about this and go back and forth on some of these. Did I scroll by it? Let me just find your post. I might have scrolled by it.
Yes, as you're
Common
scrolling, you
questions.
said that this is public, right? So I just want to know what not to disclose for privacy reasons.
I said this is public, meaning what? I'm sorry, just clarify.
To clarify, you'll put this video on YouTube publicly, is that right?
I put it, yeah. I mean, I put it on YouTube. It probably only get about 20 or 30 views. It's mostly my existing clients, but that's where
Okay,
I publish it so I can host the replay. But
no
yeah,
problem.
I do put these on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Good to know.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
hoping you don't have an issue with that, but I'm not going to try to embarrass you or
No,
have you give any personal information here. But yeah,
right, right.
a lot
I'll
of
keep
clients
my
like to watch the replay and they find it valuable. And some
totally.
people might have these same questions in the future. It's easier for me to direct them to a recording where I've already covered it than to go through it all again. So that's kind of how I use that. But yes,
Okay.
I'd love to dive into these. So number one, you're saying common sweat questions you're getting on your sales calls, and I get that. Some of these seem really weird to me. Some questions, I've hosted a lot of sales calls both as the data supplier and provider, which might be a little different than a reseller. I will grant you, and I understand that. But I've also done plenty of calls as a reseller and helping resellers. And a lot of the stuff you have here are things I haven't seen very common. So my first thing I'm starting to wonder, or think about here, Danielle, is your sales process kind of generating some of these questions? Because although they are
Mhm.
questions you're getting on the sales call, I wouldn't necessarily call a lot of these sales questions per se, if that makes sense. They're more
Right.
about trust questions, about accuracy questions, right? And I get that. So
Yeah.
I think we're talking more about the information and education side of things than actual sales
Yes.
here. Would you agree?
That would, yes, I was just gonna say, yeah, some of the sales
Got it.
aspects I've been able to answer, but I'm really getting grilled hard. And but it's not a bad thing though, because I am very noticing, though they didn't all say it, it's like they've been burned so much before that they're really trying to uncover the secret sauce, not the secret sauce, but
I know what you're
kind
saying.
of.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
but
what you're saying.
they're like buyers. Like if I can clearly communicate it to them,
Oh,
I feel
totally.
like they're buyers.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I want to go through. I think you'll have a lot more clarity in about 10 or
Yeah.
15 minutes here,
Okay.
100%.
Perfect.
So number one, Ro, are you still on and able to unmute real quick?
Yep.
Great, great. For some reason, my thing's screwed up. I can't see every participant on here right now. Number one, specifically, I'd love to hear your take on this before I say what I have to say. I think you might actually work in this side of the business and have a little different perspective. But she's saying here 20 billion data points per day. Does that refer to intent signals like search activity, page visits, comparisons, or broader demographic and behavioral data aggregation? I'm actually not super certain on that one. I think you might have a little better insight here, working more on the support side. What are your thoughts on that, Ro?
So we get, what is it, around 260 per week now, 260 billion per week.
I thought it was more. Yeah,
So throughout the day, like daily, I mean, obviously it's going to be plus or minus tens of billions, right? But what
correct.
we're seeing is it is like an aggregate of all of that. It's not exactly one for one search visits. That's a difference. It's not like a Google search we're finding them one for one, but it's all the activities adjacent to it, as well as clickstream. When we say that, it's like all the ads that people click on, any kind of form fills that are related to that, downloads, page activity. So a lot of it, because a lot of the internet revolves around just ads, where they're
Hmm.
displayed, and they have to be obviously categorized and specific. We get a lot of the behavioral data from all the billions of impressions that go on daily, essentially.
Okay. So if that's the case, so they've asked about the 30 different platforms that we're partnered with. And so they do kind of want to know, what is it exactly that, is it page visits that we're tracking? Is it the search activity? Yeah, when they kind of ask me for a little more specific on like what kind of data, like how do you know? Because I said some of the things that I've heard you guys say, and then they're like, well, how do you know? Is it like how long they've spent on a website? How do you know if they've been on a competitor website? What about for my niche? How do you, so.
I mean, there's definitely a combination of that. Also, Adam has put out like say a newer video kind of going over exactly
Oh,
these
okay.
questions. But it's really a combination of a lot of that. The way the intent is actually scored is people have a standard set of behaviors normally,
Hmm.
and then what we call the deviation of standard behavior is when you start seeing a burst of activity targeted towards these specific keywords in general, right?
Yeah.
So over X amount of days, people that have more activity towards these sectors, these keywords or these pre-mades, they're going to start scoring higher and higher, depending on if they're low or, in the awareness or having done some research or, they've been spending a lot of time, a lot of activity in this set of keywords, this bundle of keywords. And they are the most primed to take an action based on, their activity on these pages, as well as the related pages, anything they've filled out. Like a lot of different activities are scored in a lot of different ways, but the aggregate total is how they get placed in the different intent categories, essentially. But Adam does a much better job explaining it, essentially.
Okay. Do you know what that video is called? Is
Yeah,
it
let me see if I
the
can find
one,
that for you.
the intent
Yeah,
video?
try to find that, and I have some more. I have some more stuff I want to give you on this specifically, but to Rose's point and to your main question here, I
Mhm.
find that when you're starting to get really, really granular and into like, I want to know about all your partners and how you know everything. Like, I think we're getting a bit in the weeds, which I've rarely ever had to do on sales calls. I try to stay more high level about, problems, solutions, results, and outcomes. I think when we start to get into all that, what we're going to end up doing, no matter how confident you are, no matter how comfortable you are explaining this, we're going to create a bit of sales resistance and apprehension, and not everything is going to make sense. So I understand if you absolutely need to go down this path and you have that kind of one-off inquisitive person that's just like, way in the weeds type of, that's the way their brain works. This shouldn't be a normal thing you're coming up with. So hopefully these are
I've actually
one-offs.
I've actually gotten quite a few. So it was like 3 people yesterday, and then 1 person this morning where somebody will bring on their kid, which is in marketing, and that's when the questions will came up this morning.
And what do you think? What are you discussing before that that's kind of leading into this line of questioning? That's kind of what I'm kind of curious about.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that this our software is extremely uh it's really advanced. It's able to capture somebody when they're in the when they switch over from research mode to I'm interested in buying mode, and we capture them at that moment, and then we filter for, I mean, I say it a little different, but then we, make sure that we grab the highest quality people within that demographic, and then we send you just the top people.
Okay, so I would focus more on talking about it like this. We have the most robust and historically accurate database on the planet. What we're able to do is kind of break down your leads by different scoring types. So we're able to kind of differentiate your top of funnel, your middle funnel, and your bottom of funnel buyers. People that need more education, people that need more details and information, or people that just want to book a call and buy today. That way we can remarket to them accordingly. So I would have the conversation more on that level. Does that make sense, Danielle?
It does. It does.
I think that will take you away from getting a lot of these questions. Just saying that they're going to be like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I don't really need to go into the weeds. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Great, great. So that's one thing. Now, your next question and point in here, are your leads drawn primarily from partnerships with websites providing first-party consent-based, aggregated from partners or licensed third-party vendors? Again, that's like a really in the weeds question. Now, when you're initially getting this question, are your leads drawn primarily? Are you positioning this and packaging it as selling per lead or per profile?
No, I'm still just trying to issue a free pixel
Okay, so if you're trying
like a
to issue a free
trial.
pixel, this question certainly shouldn't be applicable whatsoever because the pixel is only resolving bounce visitors off of their website or landing page, correct?
Sure, yes. But you know what? I'm using that as the opening line, but I am catching people that are they're very interested because they're in pain. And so they're like, look, we've been burned before, but you sound very sure of what you're talking about. You seem to really believe that this is the Ferrari of solutions. Um, and so that's what they're doing. They're trying to ask the questions just to figure out the differentiation. Now, I will say
Yeah,
it could be that I'm not not it could clearly I'm not explaining it in a way that is I do believe that this is the best, but I'm not able to
yeah. Let me talk
enunciate
about
it.
that a little more. No, I know exactly what you're
Okay.
saying. So first off,
Okay.
I always like to say, I don't know if it's your strategy or the market you're reaching out to, why
Yeah.
you're always leading with the pixel. And I'm not saying that there's right or wrong. They can both work. But me personally, what I'm always trying to do is assess where the business is before I ever get into my pitch. Obviously, right? We need to do
Okay.
a bit of a discovery phase. So what I'm trying to assess is this brand currently running money on paid advertising? Number one, or are they running a lot of email and SMS outreach? So I want to understand when I get on with any business owner, hey Danielle, prior to this conversation, and let's say over the last 6 months, what's your primary acquisition channel and how do you acquire most clients? That's always one of my first questions. When they
Mhm.
start telling me, hey, we're running 10K a month in Facebook ads. Okay, great. Facebook ads. How are you targeting? Are you just ticking the box that says let Facebook find my ideal audience? Are you trying to use Facebook's very limited in platform native targeting parameters where we have, I believe it's less than 5 parameters now to choose from? Which method are you using on Facebook? And most of them are going to say, I'm ticking the box that says let Facebook find my ideal audience. And I can go into this more and I will if you'd like. My point is, I'm really trying to assess, and what is in a couple of my videos, I believe it's in the classroom section under the agency win kit module, where I'm talking about what do I lead with first, the pixel or audiences? When's a good time to pitch both together? When does one complement one another? So I think what you need to do a little better, perhaps, Danielle, and correct me if
Mhm.
I'm way off base here, but just assess what they're doing. And we want to pitch them the ideal solution that's going to get them the quickest win. So if they're driving
Yeah.
a lot and spending a lot on Facebook ads, let's just say this is the case, and they're sending out a ton of cold email, but they're not driving a ton of traffic to a particular website or landing page, I'm never going to be leading with the pixel if that's the case. Just first and foremost, I'm going to lead with
Sure.
audiences, and then after 2 months in, I'm going to say, hey, in the last 2 months with all this ad spend, the enhanced targeting, and the results we're getting, now we're driving a lot of traffic to this page. I think it's a great time to install my identity resolution tool and recapture some of that traffic, and I'm going to cross sell it or upsell it a couple months into the relationship. Now, there's other cases where I'm going to speak to a business owner who's spending on ads and driving a lot of traffic, and I'm going to pitch both of these solutions at once, combine them, and give them a little discount for buying two things instead of one service. Things like that. So
I
that's
see.
what I have to say first and foremost. Now, if I do diagnose the pixel's the right fit, or I'm leading with it every time because I know I'm in an industry that's getting a lot of traffic to their webpage, I'm always going to explain it something like this. Hey Danielle, this is how the pixel works. So it's one line of code I just install onto the header of your website. Once it starts firing, which is within minutes, it's going to start to resolve the identity of your bounce visitors or your anonymous traffic. Now, again, I didn't go through this, Danielle, so I'm kind of sidebarring here, but let's just say you told me you had a 2.5% conversion rate on your website. Okay, so Danielle, that means we have about 97.5% bounce traffic or anonymous visitors, meaning if they land on your website, Danielle, and they don't opt in and give you their information, book a call, fill out a form, make a purchase, whatever, do you know who's visiting your website? Well, no, Ray. If they don't opt in, no, I don't. And that's kind of the old way in doing business, Danielle. There's new technology out there called identity resolution. My tool in particular is called the Super Pixel. So again, once I throw it on your website and it's firing, it's going to resolve anywhere from about 30 to 60% of your bounce visitors. What does resolved identity mean? It means I'm going to capture the first and last name, the email, the phone number, and the hashed profile, meaning their advertising profile, which we could use in retargeting ads, and give that back to you. So let me ask you a question before before I go any deeper in explaining this, Danielle. Do you think people who visited your website in the last month or somebody in your next cold email campaign is more likely to buy from you?
I see. Hmm.
And almost every time they're going to say, well, probably somebody that knows about my brand and visited my website. I agree, Danielle. So why don't we, you're already spending money and time to get those people to your website. Why don't we retarget the people that already know about your brand, that visited your page, and give them a little discount or urgency or offer stack or a little bump and some incentive to come back to the page and actually make a purchase or fill out a form or whatever. What I've
Yeah.
found in doing this for clients is you said you have about a 2.5% opt-in from cold traffic to your website. I've found with retargeting warm traffic via the pixel and very direct retargeting ads, we see about a 10% opt-in rate. So again, I think just by installing that on your website, retargeting those people, we can pick up money that we're leaving on the table right now from people already visiting your website. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. I see the
And that's
problem
my
now.
conversation.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So what I'm doing is I'm cold calling, and of all the ways that I've been able to get somebody to say to engage with me is the first thing I open with, "Hey, I'd like to send you some free leads."
Yeah, and
That's
it works for cold calling, but it really puts you in, it really kind of shoots you in the foot for the rest of the sales call because now that's their whole focus throughout the call. Everything you say is about now about these free leads. Where do you get these leads from? And that's
yes,
probably
that's the next
generating some of
question.
these questions and concern. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not saying cold calling is wrong. It's not. I would try to find a different opener though. Or I would lead and if I were you, I would create
Yeah.
some cold email campaigns and split test a couple things. Matter of fact, Monica's on this call and she asked me not to, so I'm not going to share her copy and stuff, but she just sent me over some examples of two different email headlines and openers that she was going to use. I gave her some feedback, told her which one I liked better and why. So I think if we can start off diving right into the problem, like hitting someone with an email saying, hey, what if I could give you access to the same data your category king competitor has, right? Like just something like that. What if I could give you the competitive advantage? Let's say we're in retail and e-commerce, right? Let's say, what if I could give you the same data and competitive advantage that Walmart, Target, and Amazon are using so you can acquire a client as cheap as them? Would that help your business, right? So things like that bring up intrigue. What if I could drop your cost per lead and acquisition overnight without having to, increase my ad spend or launch new creative? What if I could show you a way to do that? So I always try to start to lead with the problem. And then obviously the body is talking a little about my unexpected solution at this point. And then, hey, if you want more info, reply now and I'll send you over a demo and or some info. So what I would recommend,
Yes.
regardless if you're cold calling or email, I would prefer personally, if it was me, I'd be doing email and only getting in conversations with the people that raise their hand and say, yes, Danielle, I do want to lower my cost. I do want to compete, have the same data as my competitor. So first
Yeah.
I create interest and then I get on the call and talk with them. And in the meantime, in between, I think something I recommended to you, Monica, something that a client of mine, Sean, just did earlier today and sent me the script is looking great, is what I recommend is you guys should have about a 5 to 7 minute education and information video that you send to people once they say they're interested. Great, you're interested in lowering your cost per lead? Here, check out this 5 minute video and then book a link with me. We'll talk about how we can implement this strategy right into your business for your immediate objective. And I want to find out more about your ideal client. Boom, 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 all about them, right? So I can give you guys some examples of scripts and videos that we create, but it's things that are going to go over the main problems and solution. I always lead with in my video, hey, you're probably watching this video because you have a lot of website visitors that aren't converting, or you have a lot of ad spend, but you have rising cost per lead and acquisition and lower profitability. What if I could give you the power back by enhancing your targeted audience in a way you can do it outside of Facebook's limited parameters? And I just dive right into the problem. Then I show them a little about the solution. I say, great, book your call so we can strategize this more custom to your business rather than this general video I just made you.
Perfect. Yes.
If you can get
Okay.
that process dialed in, I think it's going to alleviate and eliminate a lot of this stuff that you're seeing. I
Yeah.
really think these are really kind of in the weeds, not necessarily sales questions. These are more
Yeah.
skeptical questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say I'm getting into good conversations with people I think are buyers, but and so I haven't dialed in, I haven't been able to figure out the emails to get people to respond yet. I have been sending out a couple hundred emails but yeah, I haven't gotten any responses yet.
Well, I'd love you to send me over the copy and the headlines you're using so I could give
Okay.
you some critiques and some suggestions of what I might try and some things I might split test. It definitely
Yeah.
works as long as we have the right copy. That's what
Excellent.
works with email. I don't care how good a data I give you and how good a
Yeah.
deliverability. If your copy and your subject line sucks and
Yeah.
don't get open, it doesn't really matter. The rest of that's all for naught, for lack of a better phrase. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this sounds so much better. I am getting way too technical on these calls, and I'm like, what's happening? This
That's the
sounds,
first thing that came to my mind when I read this. I was like,
yeah,
wow, because these are questions. I mean, I've done a lot of these calls, Danielle. I'm not
yeah.
sugarcoating it, and I never get these questions, like never. I mean,
Oh
I
my
might be able to
gosh.
find 1 out of 100 conversations where I get even a question close to this. And it's because I
Yeah,
think it's the way you're leading in
I think
and
so
we're not
too.
building up, you know, you're also having to educate everything on the call because you're cold calling.
Yes,
Whereas if you can get a little warm interest and somebody raises their hand, have them
totally.
watch the education video, and then you start off the call with, hey Danielle,
Yeah,
did you go through that 5 minute video I sent you? Yeah, I did. What was your biggest takeaway? And they're going to say, I love how
perfect.
you did this. And they're going to start talking about what they like
Yeah,
about your service to start
I
the sales call. The momentum is already in your
totally.
favor.
I want that. Okay, how do I get that script of the videos that you guys have created?
I'll give you a sample video, an example of the one we just did. Now, again, I'm going to advise that I'm happy to share. I'm very transparent. Anything that we create and have success with, I'll share with you guys. I will
Awesome.
advise you to do it with a little different strategy, but the same framework, right? Because
Sure.
Audience Lab, our objective is to sell to agencies that want to resell our stuff. Your
Yeah,
objective is to sell to brands that want this problem solved themselves. So
yeah.
that's going to be a little different, but the framework doesn't change. We still
Hmm.
lead off with a main problem. We talk about an unexpected solution. We focus on results and outcomes, and we talk about a couple of reputable or credible case studies to build up a little bit of trust. And then we say at the end, hey, if you have this system implemented into your business, would you get better returns? Would you get, you know, better, whatever
Yeah,
the problem is, right? Very specific. And they're almost, if you do this properly, at the end of the video, they have to be thinking to themselves, yeah, if I had this, it would make a difference in my business. Great. I agree. Book a call here so we can go through a quick 15-minute thing and I can build out a game plan on how this would work for you specifically. And we always gear everything to them specifically, them and their outcomes.
I love it. All right, then my last question is, I'm really trying to get into the the low fulfillment model, and yet I'm getting into all these conversations where they're like, "Oh, well, how do you get the lead?" So, is there a
I got you
specific
there.
video? Yeah,
There
how do
is.
I?
There
Okay.
is.
Oh,
There's a very
excellent.
specific one that I'm going to go over and refer to you. And what I always say to that, and I think I do this, I think we get in this conversation probably 2 or 3 of these workshops out of the month, at least in a brief little segment. What I always tell people, and the biggest differentiator between our successful low fulfillment model agencies and our non, is how good you pre-qualify your client. Meaning, to
Hmm.
be a low fulfillment model agency, Danielle, you have to go with a bit more of an established business that when I
Hmm.
provide them with this list of data, they're going to know what to do with it. They have a
Yeah.
marketing department, they have an advertising budget, they have a media buyer, whatever. So I guess my first test for you would be very specific with the niche or your industry you're going for, and then think of 4 or 5 prerequisites so you're only targeting companies. Again, think about this for your niche or industry, but how long have they been in business? How many employees are on the team? How much is their annual revenue? And you're going to see a very kind of consistent threshold between, okay, all the established companies in this industry have been in business 5 years, have 20 plus employees, and do over 2 million in revenue, or whatever those numbers are, right?
Hmm.
So I want to make sure I'm only targeting businesses that fit or above that threshold. When you
Hmm.
start targeting the lower tier clients, the mom and pops, the people without a marketing team, a media buying team, you start talking about this data, and even if it sounds great, you give it to them,
Yeah.
they're not going to know how to go reactivate it, how to run the ads and the emails. They're not going to have success, and they're never going to come back and buy more. So to run a very good low fulfillment model agency, you have
Hmm.
to make sure you're targeting that more sophisticated, more established, tier client in your niche or industry.
Do you
So
have those numbers already? Have you guys already figured out the data, like how much?
well, those numbers are different in every single niche and industry.
I see.
So I can't say to you specifically. I can
Okay.
tell you in the solar industry what I'd be looking for. I'd tell you what I'd be looking for in the e-com industry. But again, I would need to know more about the specific industry and the person you're targeting.
Hmm.
I think actually AI is really good at this. I could go into AI right now and say, hey, out of the top or out of I don't know, I'd say out of all the e-commerce companies out there in the marketplace, ones that are established and running paid ads, tell me a little about those companies. And they'll say, this average company has been in business for 5 years. They have 14 employees. They're spending 18K per month on ads. And they're going to tell you what the media, what the
Hmm.
moderate, the average client is doing that would be considered an established one. AI is really good for that. I mean, I can tell you in a lot of industries too, but
Sure.
it's pretty easy research to do to kind of figure out where it falls as kind of an established company rather than a startup, a mom and pop, a one-off. Those people aren't going to know what to do with the data. The only way I work with those companies is if I'm offering full stack services where I'm running
Hmm.
their ads for them, and then you're no longer a low fulfillment model. So
Right.
that doesn't sound like what you want to do, Danielle.
Correct. Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Let's.
I do want to get into some other stuff, but let's go through
Okay.
one or two more things on here real quick, and then I'm going to
Oh,
kick it back to anybody else that might have questions or that's been
yeah.
following or that this
Before.
is making sense. And I'm also going to touch on some of those specific videos and resources that I talked about, the low fulfillment agency, the intent scoring, just a couple things for you, Danielle, and anybody else that's finding interest in there, resources you can go through. But I want to go through something here that you guys also might see kind of common. So this is what you put in here. This is what the client said to you. We had a video go viral, and we had about 30K visitors land on our website in 1 week, but none of them were really customers. We get about 10K regular weekly, but very few of them leave their contact information. So how do I know they're actually interested? Phase. So again, Danielle, just for you and anybody else here, number one, the big difference between like in-market audiences and the pixel is the pixel's not going to have near as much intent aspect of it. The pixel's just going to say these people visited your website and know about your brand and bounced off without giving you the information. My question back to any client I've ever spoken with that says we got 30,000 visitors and not one of them are interested is what kind of messaging am I creating to drive people to my website? Because it's not driving the right people. Like something is wrong with their messaging. If they're driving 30,000 people to a website where none of them are their ideal client, I don't know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Normally, you can't drive people to a page unless there is a benefit and a solution that they're going to. There's a problem, right? Hey, go visit our website and get this problem solved. Get my free PDF, whatever. So, like, if they're driving that many people to a website and very few or none are interested, I think something's really, really wrong with their messaging.
Mhm.
Number two, as I say to most business owners, just because somebody visited your website, Danielle, and bounced off didn't necessarily mean they had no intent. They could have had a bad connection. They could have got a phone call right as they were logging into your website and they never went back to it. They could have started to fill out the form and got frustrated and said F it and bounced off the page. There's all kinds of reasons why they might not. What I'm saying is they took the time to visit your website. They know of your brand already. So why wouldn't we take those people and loop them into a very direct retargeting ad? Something along the lines of, hey, we saw you visited our Let's Go website here in the last month or so. Hey, we're sorry to see you didn't opt in for our free newsletter or make a purchase and become a customer. But because you're a loyal Costco website visitor and you spent time on our page, here's 25% off your entire first purchase if you go check out within the next 24 hours. You don't
Mhm.
think that's going to drive some of those people who visited the page back to actually make a purchase?
Right. That's true.
So that's the whole goal of the pixel is to reactivate these people and give them a little urgency or discount to go take action. There's a lot less intent involved with the pixel than there are with the in-market audiences.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
The intent is they already landed on your website. They should want to know some more about your business, shouldn't they? And if
Yeah.
you're driving people to your website that are wrong, you need to dial in your messaging and your whatever video he's creating to drive people to the website. That's a business problem. That's nothing I can help.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I thought that was important. I thought other people
Yeah.
might want to see that. Now, my answer to this one, and then I want Ro to go on this because Ro might have a different perspective. But I think this is a great question. Compared to other tools or other websites, and you put Lead Feeder and 6sense, I would say the most common ones I hear are Pearl Diver, Apollo, LiveRamp, Zoom Info, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The scale, the advantage, the scale, the precision of intent, detection, unique method correlating. Like, what's the difference is what they're trying to ask. What I
Yeah.
would say is the difference between Audience Lab and any other major provider are two main factors. And this is all I want to be judged on as a data provider. And to be very transparent, I think consumers should do their homework and really try to judge any data provider on these two categories. But what is the historical accuracy of the data? And what are the match rates that when I have this list and I loop it into my marketing or my advertising campaigns, that I actually hit back to Danielle King's feed when she's scrolling social media, that I actually hit back to Danielle King's, email inbox and making sure I'm hitting the right Danielle King, all those things. Right now, our data and accuracy is performing at, I should say, our historical accuracy and our match rates are performing at about a 2 to 3x ratio to any of those competitors I just mentioned. So that's what I don't want to say our data is better. I'm not going to get into that argument. That's very subjective. What I am going to say is people see a better ROI with our data because our accuracy and our match rates is historically higher and more consistent. I think that's the biggest differentiator between us and the competition. And I even have a graphic that after our one-on-one THO call that we did, in that recap email, I sent you two graphics. One is showing our match rates and our accuracy as opposed to 3 or 4 competitors. So I think that's a good tool to use on a sales call where you're getting a question like this. Ro, would you agree, or do you have anything to add on to that?
No, that's essentially what I would say as well. The biggest things with, especially like 6sense. 6sense is very high end, like ABM-esque, quote unquote intent, where they pull in from a lot of different places, and you're spending like a minimum of 6 figures per year locked into a contract to maybe get data that could help in an ABM fashion. Whereas there's a reason a lot of people switch off of it after a while. So that's all I'll say. I mean,
okay, that makes sense.
Ray really just nailed it, to be honest.
What
Yeah,
is
I mean, it's really the
ABM?
accuracy and the match rates.
Okay.
And then the last one there, I think that's kind of interesting. Would you describe the software's role as primary lead generation, buyer intent monitor, or data enrichment? I mean, I would describe the software and the main platform as being a super graph or a super grid tracking over 280 million users, up to 1.9 trillion behaviors, and over 60 billion URLs daily. So we are a data source. I don't want to necessarily call it lead generation, or the enrichment and the intent is a feature within the data grid and within the database where we can get more granular than other softwares or other platforms. But the main role is to give you a database of all those metrics I just talked about: 280 million users, 1.9 trillion behaviors, over 60 billion URLs, and build you your ideal audience based on the market, the intent keywords, and the parameters of your ideal audience. That's how I would describe the software's main role. Would you agree there, Ro?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Does that answer your question, Danielle?
Yes.
Okay, great. So a couple other things let's go over really quickly. First off, you asked me about that low fulfillment model and if there's a video on that. So maybe there's other people
Yes.
wondering that. A lot of people have already received this. Just in case you haven't, within our DaaS client checklist, minimum requirements for success, number 11 on here is a YouTube video I shot maybe about 5 months ago, 16 or 17 minutes total, purely geared toward if I'm starting my DaaS agency from scratch, and I did this from the perspective of the low fulfillment model. What should I do? How should I land my first clients? I went through templates and frameworks, and every one I went through is listed down in the description of this particular video. So number 11 on this checklist is a video specifically for how to launch a successful low fulfillment DaaS agency model. The prerequisites I talk about, I kind of covered that a little here today, building how established or sophisticated your client is, etc. And then I go through scripts and frameworks and templates I've used to create messaging and copy around this to go land my first few clients for a low fulfillment DaaS agency model without having to spend money on my own ads. I talk about LinkedIn and cold email methods and things like that. So guys, I'm going to go drop that here in the chat for everybody. If you guys haven't already received our DaaS client checklist, it's a very, very cool tool, and I go over it every time on the one-on-one THO call that we do together, and I send in the recap email. So that is the last link right now in the chat to this. And then when you open it, number 11 is specific to your question there and that video you were talking about, Danielle. Now,
Okay.
Also, something else we were talking about with Adam dropping some new videos and some new updates in the classroom section, very specific to some of the intent stuff and the quality. Like I talked about top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. In the new Getting Started with Audience Lab, which just got updated this week, if you guys haven't noticed, there is the understanding intent scoring module. And again, I think the more familiar you get with this and the more you understand this, the easier it is to explain to your clients, kind of like I just explained it to you guys. So if you haven't already seen either the new Getting Started with Audience Lab module here, which was just updated, I want to say on Monday. Today's Tuesday. Yeah, I think it was done yesterday. Might have been last Friday, whatever. Within the last business day or two, this whole, you'll see that the graphic looks different. The modules in here are different. There's a lot of newer ones, and we just tried to simplify it. I think the other one, the old Getting Started with Audience Lab, was a little more all over the place, where this one's like, hey, understand pre-mades, understand the keyword intent, understand when I need to use a custom and the full training on how to build one, understanding intent scores. So we're getting a lot more granular with each kind of feature within the audience builder, or for lack of a better phrase, I know the audience builder is its own feature, but we have all the subsections within there. So I also think that's pretty relevant and valuable. And then Ro dropped a couple things in the chat here, Danielle, specific to some of your questions in terms of where
Awesome.
one or two videos were that Adam just shot recently as well. Hopefully you copied and pasted or you found those in the chat.
Yes.
What I'd love to kind of what I'd love to do now is that was a great post. And I think a lot of these questions are things that a lot of people probably had. And we did spend a majority of this workshop kind of going over that. And of course, I think a lot of that stuff I told you, Danielle, was certainly applicable to a lot of other people on the call. And maybe, why we're going a little in depth and why we're getting in the weeds as opposed to focus more on the overarching, 30,000 foot overview of what we're doing here. But I know there's about 10 or 12 people on the call. Does anyone else have any other questions, either relating to what I discussed or questions that you hopped on the sales workshop because you had a specific question, concern, objection to overcome? If anybody has anything like that, just type a 1 in the chat or use the hand raise emoji here on Zoom if you know how to do that, and I will call on you. That way people aren't speaking over one another. But I would love to answer any other questions, and if I don't have any, I have another little lesson and tool I can dive into, but I want it to be very respectful of the other 10 people on the call and not just focus on one person's questions. Again, Danielle, they were great, and I think they're applicable to damn near everybody on the call, so I don't feel like I really focused on one person's, but I want to give everybody the ability to ask. So I will give that another minute. I'll see if I see any hand raise emojis here, which I don't yet, or any comments in the chat. Again, just type a 1 in the chat if you have any questions, and if not, I'll dive through another tool that I'd love to share with you guys that I think you'll find valuable as you are, number one, taking sales calls for yourself, and number two, as you start to grow and maybe bring on a rep or start to build a team of reps. Just a tool that we used internally for a couple of years that had a big factor, I would say, in my ability to have eyeballs on all the metrics that matter when managing my sales team. Whether I'm managing myself, 1 rep, 5 reps, doesn't really matter. Without these metrics and this type of tool, it was very, very difficult to have just a clear picture where I could go look at one thing and know how to go make decisions and optimize and tweak. So since I don't see any questions, I'm going to dive into that, and this is a resource. I don't know if I've ever shared it with you guys before, but I'm going to give it to you guys and share it with you today. So what that is, and this is the last version I had for my Audience Lab team, this is a pretty in-depth tracking sheet. Now, the one we're looking at, you can see there's all these different tabs at the bottom, right? So I'm on the example rep sheet where I just filled out June. And again, these numbers might be really overwhelming and you guys aren't doing the same numbers. I don't care if this number is 277, 27, or 7. It's still about tracking the metrics. Don't necessarily worry about, I don't have the same volume as you guys. I know most of you guys don't have the same volume as us. Most of you guys aren't spending 50K a month on ads either, so I get it. Like, we have more volume because we spend a lot of money on stuff and we have a lot of team members. But we were doing this when we were booking calls organically, when we're booking them off email campaigns, when we were spending $200 a day as opposed to $2,000 a day, right? That stuff doesn't really matter. So what this is showing you, I'm going to show you the sample sheet real quick and what these all stand for. Then I want to show you a practical example with one of my reps, and I'm going to pick a name at random at the bottom and show you what that looks like. But in this June example, this says either this rep or this team, could have been individual. Actually, this is an example rep sheet. So this rep had 277 calls on his calendar for the month of June. This shows that 148 actually showed up, 11 canceled, 51 no-showed, 36 of those 148 that actually showed up were qualified, interested, and we actually made an offer to them. 17 of them we closed and signed into a contract, which led to $37,000 collected. And just so you guys can know the difference between these columns, J and K specifically, what we do internally, and you guys should be doing somewhat the same because how I teach to price it, a lot of times you would be collecting a little more cash up front than you might have in the revenue generated column. For us, that is the MRR, meaning if I enroll somebody into a 2K package and that's what they pay month in and month out, the revenue generated under monthly recurring revenue would be 2K. But if I collected that 2K and I added in a $500 activation fee or account setup fee or whatever, my cash collected would be $2,500, but my revenue generated would be $2,000. That's what I keep collecting month in and month out. So that's the only difference between this is sometimes you're collecting an upfront fee, whatever that may be, right? Everybody has different phrases and terminology, but that's the difference. Normally we're going to collect a little more cash up front and the MRR might be slightly less month in and month out because we only get the activation fee once or the setup fee or the onboarding fee or the whatever the hell you call it, right? So then when we go over to collection, that's the only reason you see this number over 100%. It just means what you collected today is actually more than what you're billing month in and month out, which is actually standard in the way we bill. So it's not abnormal to see collection above 100%. Now, I get it in most spreadsheets and percentages, everything should kind of cap out at 100%. This one is done differently and it's intentional this way. So don't think that's an error. We see the show rate here was 53%. For me, that's number one that's already glaring to me looking over this as a sales manager. Our KPI for show rate is 68%. So why did this rep have a 53%? Is it something with our quality? Is it something with not educating right? Is it something where our rep is actually mismanaging the conversations and maybe forcing no shows or missing some appointments himself? And then it's, the numbers may be looking like it's more on just the show percentage. So now I need to go back and just look at what's happening in my funnel or in this rep's pipeline management, because that number here for me is about 15% below KPI, which is enough to kind of raise the eyebrows, right? And to go look into what's happening. And again, everybody might have KPIs. The offer percentage is pretty solid. Close percentage was pretty low this month. And then on this particular spreadsheet and the way we've extended this one as a sales manager specifically, columns Q and R on my screen are the most important to me. So this is telling me per each one of these bookings that actually showed up, right? How much revenue does my rep collect per booking and how much cash does he collect and how much monthly recurring revenue? So for me, if I know that on average it costs me $80 to get a booked appointment onto my rep's calendar, I need to make sure that their number is always above what I'm spending to get them on their calendar to have a profitable business. So if I start to see a rep that's generating less than, say, $100 per booking or per revenue, cash or revenue per booking, I should say, that would start to alarm me because that's a very low margin at that point. And I can really quickly come in here and look at my rep and let me pick one who tracked this. Again, guys, we have now automated this process where my reps don't have to go in and fill out this sheet, but we did for years. And if we didn't have all the automations and the great tech guys I have on my team, I would still be using this. As you can see, we just stopped recently. I mean, the rep I picked at random here, Adrian, was tracking this right up until September and we're in October. So this is pretty recent. But let's even go back and look at let me see a month where, let me just scroll back over to the left and see everything. Let me see a month where, what's kind of the average? So we see booked calls, how many available first? Available, and just so you guys know the difference for our funnel, you guys might not need the available column. Not everybody does. It might just start with booked and then showed. Available means that's how many people leads were assigned to Adrian, but it doesn't always mean they booked onto his calendar, right? So that's why available and booked is a little different in our funnel. But I'm going to say on average, it looks like Adrian gets about 120 bookings per month. So the month I see with right around there, I'm going to use May because I think May is a very average month by the amount of calls booked. So I think his show percentage is already really crappy looking at it. But anyway, that's the one I picked. Let's use it as an example. So he had 128 booked in May. He had 53 of them show, 6 canceled, 71 no-shows. That's crazy. And I'm sure we went and looked into it that month. Again, now this is 6 months ago. He made 27 offers and closed 19 deals. He collected 29,000 and change in cash collected that month. And again, this is just one rep on my team, guys. And he billed through 22,000, just about 23,000 in MR, meaning that's on the books. This was in May. That's on the books for June, July, August, and beyond. We can see Going a little deeper into the metrics, his collection percentage in, let me just make sure I'm on the right column, May, quite over 100%. Show percentage, as I saw right off the bat, this is one of his worst months. And Adrian's been below KPI for some months. We've actually changed this. I am surprised that September you saw a big jump, but yeah, he's closer to KPI now. But those numbers are pretty glaring as well. Offer percentage 50%, which is very strong that month. Close percentage 35%. That's what I love to see in a closer. That is above our KPI, which normally means these next two columns, which they are, cash per booking and revenue per booking. I know just by going and looking at those. Yes, all the other metrics matter, and I gave you a quick breakdown of what I'm looking for and what's kind of, again, eyebrow raising for lack of a better phrase. But I can just go in and look at columns Q and R and know if I have a profitable rep on my account. If I see a rep dips below 100, because again, if our average spend is about $82, I think is what we have it averaged out to with the last number I saw to acquire a booking. If my rep is not at least getting more than $83 per booking, and again, you want to leave a little room for margin there as well because you're paying out commissions, there's overhead, yada, yada, yada. I usually like about a 20% bump there. So once my rep, if I go in and look at one of these, they start to drop below $100 cash and revenue booking per call. And I see that from probably more than 2 to 3 months specifically. They're probably not on my team very much longer just because as a business owner, as much as I love my team and reps, if you are not making profit for the company and you are costing me money, it's you now become a liability rather than an asset to my team. And I have to make all my decisions like that. I want all assets on my team. I don't want liabilities. And from a sales rep's perspective, sales rep is the most numbers driven decisions I make in my business, right? They're never, I have great relations with all my team. I think you guys can tell I'm a pretty relationable business owner and guy. But again, I never let relations come in top of profits and numbers and metrics. So Adrian, as you can see, is wildly profitable. Pretty much all these months are way above our KPI. Let's look at a rep that's no longer with us, and I'm not calling him out. I'm just being very transparent. I'm guessing had a couple of down months, and he left more of his own will. It wasn't he had other things going, but look, so we could see the last month he was tracking. And again, we automated this. Adrian went way and above and beyond and kept filling this out even while we were doing our automated tracking, which I love. I always love a rep that goes above and beyond. We can see Jordan's numbers here in February and January and February were respectable, were profitable. But then in March, they dipped down to like way below anything that we can see. And we can see his show percentage all of a sudden in 1 month dropped by 10 or 12%. His collection percentage dropped. He only had one closed deal the whole month. So like, again, I can tell really quickly, like, okay, we're seeing a downturn here. Turns out in this case, and again, I'll be very transparent, he took on another opportunity and was working 2 offers, and it got him distracted, and he wasn't, putting as much focus or emphasis into working in his pipeline, into replying. He was getting double booked and missing some appointments. All that stuff is going to significantly drive down a rep's productivity, profitability, and all that stuff. And again, I always give people a chance to make it right, to come and talk to me, give them a month or two and put them on a probationary period where, hey man, I still want you to work, but you got to prove to me in the next month or two that you're going to be a profitable asset to my team, or else you're making the decision for me at that point, right? It's not like I want to let you go, but your numbers are letting you go. So who has the most control over their reps, their numbers as a sales rep? Yeah, the rep themselves. So you got to take a little onus and accountability on yourself. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the original sheet that I built this off. This is through a buddy of mine who runs a really great sales organization. Oh, I don't even have the link to that. Okay. I'm going to have to go drop this after. I'll have to go find the right link I can share with you. I just don't want to share this one without going in and looking at it first to make sure that you guys have to go in. The way this works, when I send you guys the link, and what I'm going to do is, you guys may know, every single time I run one of these workshops, I go into I'm just going to screen share here, and then I'll get right back to how you guys can get that resource. I just want to make sure I send you over the right one where you can't screw with none of my numbers either. You got to make your own copy, and it doesn't negate what I'm doing. So first off, within our school community, guys, every single week down here, when you click on more in the sales section here, I drop my replay of this call. So I'm sure we'll see 7 days ago. Did I click on the right one? Sales. Okay. 7 days ago, as I'm talking right there, 7 days ago, today's DaaS workshop. So today, when I post the replay, I'm going to go link this tracker that I use for my team internally. Again, I recommend you guys use this if you're a one-person show getting 10 calls per month. I don't care. It's very, very important to start tracking your metrics. And as you build, you're going to have a foundation, know how to oversee this, and know how to manage this once you're going to, remove yourself from sales and place a rep in there. So again, go look in the sales channel later today. I just have to do some work to make sure I'm putting the right link there, and you guys can't, change my numbers, or I'm going to make sure I'm giving you guys a link where you can make your own copy and it's already calculated, where you don't have to go in and enter any of the different columns and calculations. But yeah, that's something I want to share with all of you guys. Hopefully you found that valuable. Hopefully I explained that simple enough where it wasn't too complex, because I will admit it's a more robust and maybe, I don't even think so, but I'm going to use this phrase, maybe a little over the top of a tracker, because you could maybe reduce the amount of metrics. But for me, what I found is the more metrics I have eyeballs on, and especially those ones at the end, which trackers in the past I never could just go in and look at my rep tracker and say, oh, Adrian makes me this much cash per every booking I put on his calendar. Those type of numbers really help me manage and really judge and optimize and tweak my sales team and what's going on. And then I can go back in and say, hey, the whole team has low show percentages. This isn't on sales. This is on marketing. We need to beef up. We need to go create some new creative. We need to pre-qualify better. We need to disqualify people that can't afford our services. And then, it lets me make adjustments that also go back into the marketing and advertising departments. So anyway, very robust sheet. I'll make sure I get the link shared with you guys today in that sales channel later on. Again, let me go through when I have a few more minutes and make sure I have the right one that you guys can access, make your own copy, and we'll go in there and automatically make the calculations. Well, that was perfect timing. We're right up to 1 minute before the end of the hour. So that'll do it for this week's workshop. Specifically Danielle and anybody else that either DMs me or whatever, I'm happy to send this to whoever would like. Danielle was the one that had the very specific questions and that I dealt with most today. But Danielle, I'm going to get you over a copy of one of our, what I call an educational video, or VSL, a video sales letter, that we would send to a prospect before they ever hopped on a call with us. I'll send you a script or two that I've built more for our reseller agencies. The one I'm going to show you initially is for Audience Lab. Then I want to show you the differences, how I would use that same framework, but how I would write it if I was more of a reseller.
Yes, thank you.
So
And
I'll
you
make sure
need-
I share all that stuff with you, and anybody else who wants those similar resources, just shoot me a school DM. I'm just not going to remember if everybody puts in the comment, shoot it to me. Just shoot me a DM in school. That way I can track back to everybody who's interested. Happy to share that with everybody. Any resource that we ever create, whether it's myself, a client, a user, a team member, I'm Mr. Transparent. I'm going to share everything with you that will be of value.
Yes, thank you so much. And I do want to give Adrian a shout out. His sales is phenomenal. So tight. Exactly. He was great. Just want to let you know.
I couldn't agree more. The numbers back up what you said there, so I couldn't argue that fact. 100%. Thank you for the kind words, though. I'll pass that along. Adrian always likes hearing some positive feedback. Usually in sales, you don't get much positive feedback. Somebody buys and you never really hear from them again or whatever, or they forget their rep. So it's great to get some feedback months later. Appreciate you saying so. All right, guys, again, give me an hour or two, probably about 2 hours. I'll have that replay uploaded, and I'll make sure I have that right tracking sheet for any of you guys that want going forward. And we will see you all here on next week's DaaS Sales Workshop. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully everybody got some value and some questions answered here today. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.